Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be reviewing the new Pantheon that's coming out, which is the Three Kingdoms 2. So, the Three Kingdoms 2 is coming on March 17th, which is this Friday, and it's going to be also featured in the upcoming St. Patrick's Festival, Godfest, which I will review in a different video. Now, what makes this Pantheon unique and exciting is the fact that they are able to remove locked orbs while providing interesting or unique orb change options for their respective teams. So, as with any new card, they have to obviously make it exciting, and at least these cards are exciting in that they do something different that no one else really does. So, by that merit, these cards do at least have some value right away. Now, they also have double TPA, and all of them have the 7 combo awakening. And the 7 combo awakening enables them to deal 2 times damage when hitting at least 7 or more combos. So that is somewhat of a controllable killer awakening in that you can make the conscious effort to match less combos and pray for no skyfalls. So it is a beneficial thing to have, and obviously now with things like Fujin, damage absorption shields are somewhat a thing of the past if you are lucky enough to roll them. So the main downsides of these cards is the fact that they are new, and also because they are new, it means they don't have multiple evolution paths or tiers, which means they all will suffer from a lower number of awakenings and lower base stats. Furthermore, all these cards are actually 6 stars and will actually have slightly lower roll rates compared to other Pantheon monsters. So, because these are all Chinese names and I'm terrible at pronouncing names, I'm going to probably butcher them. So, basically this is my tier rating list for the Three Kingdoms 2 Pantheon, and they're good to a certain extent. They do something new, but nothing is necessarily stellar, perhaps with the exception of the purple one. So, the first one is Dawn, and Dawn has average weighted stats, he has the double TPA, he has the 7 combo awakening, so very offensive in himself. He also is able to change light to fire and water to dark on a 7-turn cooldown. So obviously the pros are you unlock orbs, because locked orbs can be problematic. You also have some potential pairing with Baldin, and you also actually have a 7x6 board when you use them on their own. So you have 3.5 times attack, 1.5 times recovery on their own, so they have potential for pairing with other higher attack leaders. Unfortunately, Baldin is not really that great of a pairing. Maybe Reincarnate Shiva's okay, but again, 7 with a 3.5 times, just there's low multipliers overall. There's no one stellar enough to really pair him with, and that is problematic overall. Now, he does have Brutal in his name, so maybe I'll just call him Brutal instead of Dawn, or Brutal Dawn. But he has a reasonable card overall, and perhaps his main strength is lying in the double TPA with 7 combo awakenings, because he does fit very nicely on Reincarnated Shiva teams. Reincarnated Shiva requires you to basically hit at least 7 combos or more for maximum multiplier, so that obviously plays well with the 7 combo awakening. Double TPA on a TPA heavy team means he's probably going to be hitting the hardest of anyone on your team just because he doubles his base attack value. Now, you can obviously use him on teams like Shiva Dragon, but the 7 combo awakening does somewhat go to waste because Shiva Dragon, for the most part, tends to be a speed farming team that makes very little combos. Now, the main problem also with Brutal Dawn is that he generates 2 different color orbs, and that does not really benefit many teams outside of Baldin, who is not really a strong leader. I guess you can view it in the sense that he does condense your board to 4 elements, which is beneficial, and he does not remove hearts, so at least when you don't remove hearts, you at least can still heal while dealing damage. And having a 4 elemental board is easier to solve, especially when squeezing out more TPAs and more combos for the most part. Now, I want to kind of elaborate of how locked orbs are affecting, I guess, the meta right now. And presently speaking, the main threat for locked orbs is Ilsix, and to a certain extent maybe the 297 Zeus, which only occurred once in North America. So we're going to focus mostly on Ilsix, and Ilsix basically means you are going to have a very troublesome spawn. He's one of the most dangerous encounters in the game. A lot of people do struggle with him, and not only because he has a 30% resolve and giant hitting attacks, but because once you push him into the resolve, he generates a board of locked jammers as well as water and hard orbs. Now, those locked jammers do obviously prevent you from using board changers effectively, because say you're playing a rainbow team or you're playing a monocolor team like Shiva, you want to try and use a board changer, but you may not get enough fire orbs. But you also need to heal, because usually Il-6 appears in Arena 2 and 3, and there's a very strong possibility of Divine Queen Hera on the next floor. So you have to heal and deal damage. So if you are able to remove those locked orbs, you are able to increase your chances of success, because now after you unlock the locked orbs, you can use a board changer, you can heal, you can do whatever you want is the main idea. So there are other ways to get around this, but at least we have more options. More options is great. We don't want like just one solution to be the only one you can use. The fact that we have obviously possibility for like heart cross teams, shields, or even just mono water teams, or orb changes that take water to their primary color are all viable solutions, and removing the locked orbs is just another nice thing to have. So obviously the main downside with Brutal Dawn is that his active skill is kind of lower value, 7 turns for really just fire orb generation. Next is Gan Ning, and the Water 3 Kingdom 2 god has the exact same awakenings, but much higher weighted attack and very little recovery compared to the fire alternative. He does take dark to water and wood to fire on a 7-turn cooldown as well. So he does have very similar benefits overall. He has obviously the 2 TPAs and the 7 combo awakening, as well as the ability to unlock orbs and a 7x6 board. Unfortunately, like Brutal Dawn, you don't really have a good pairing. Like, yes, you could say Awoken Sun Quan or Awoken Hermes, but the multiplier is not really high enough for the most part to really justify the 7x6 board as well. So it is problematic there, but perhaps the main downside of this guy is the fact that he really doesn't fit very well on any current high-end tier water team. Because for the most part, water teams are row-based and usually not combo-based. So all of his awakenings go completely against that. And yes, you can argue Awoken Sun Quan / Hermes or even Rukia are viable teams, but they're not as popular, not as powerful, and it's not really necessary to own Gan Ning for the most part. So that's why he's actually rated the lowest, because he just doesn't fit in well anywhere. His orb changer doesn't really benefit any powerful team, to be honest, so it's just in an awkward place for the most part. Maybe if a strong water leader resurges in popularity just because it has at least some defensive multiplier, TPAs, combos, will Gan Ning have more viability. Next is Machao, and this gentleman has the same awakenings as the other ones have, very similar weighted stats in the sense that it's 749 total. He does remove locked orbs and generates wood orbs from dark and fire to light on a 7-turn cooldown. Same leader skill, except you have to match wood and light orbs. And naturally his pros are obviously unlocking orbs, does not remove hard orbs, but he does have a potential to pair with Odin Dragon, as well as being actually a very viable inherit for Odin Dragon teams. Because Odin Dragon relies on wood and light crosses for success, and the fact that color crosses do have some restrictions in how many you can actually squeeze in on a 6x5 board, opening up to the 7x6 number is beneficial, because you will most likely always have at least 2 to 3 color crosses available at all times, as well as the potential to have more color crosses and better take advantage of the 7 combo awakening. So this is actually a viable pairing for the most part. Obviously, you do have lower stats than dual Odin Dragons, and you are not bind immune, but you have a much stronger active skill, so it's a reasonable pairing for the most part. Now, the little bit of math, I guess, is that 2 color crosses with Odin Dragon plus this gentleman is 43 times attack, 150 with 3 colors, and you do have the chance, obviously, for 4+ crosses, and the damage ramps up significantly from there. So it is a reasonable pairing, and potentially even a stronger inherit for Odin Dragon teams. So he does have merits, and that's why he is placed in the single checkmark category along with Brutal Dawn. Next is, I don't know how to say this name, Diao Chan, and she differs from the rest of the Pantheon because she actually has a completely different set of awakenings by comparison, as well as a completely different active skill. So her awakenings provide 10% damage reduction from light and 10% damage reduction from dark attacks passively. So this happens all the time. She naturally has a 7 combo awakening and a single time extend and skill bind resist like the other ones did. However, her active skill also differs in that you are able to remove locked orbs and plus 2 seconds to orb movement time on a very short 2-turn cooldown. So that's a very beneficial aspect to have. Her leader skill is the exact same in the sense that she has 3.5 times attack, 1.5 times recovery, 7x6 ward for matching her respective colors of light and dark. So basically, the main pros are the fact that she has this 2-turn base cooldown, which makes her a very desirable base for inheritance, and I'll explain that a little bit more. Now, the main downside is obviously there's no appropriate pairing, and those damage reduction damage reduction awakenings are situational for the most part. They will provide you at least a very a nice buffer in solo mode when your health is a bit more jeopardized, especially when trying to tank Divine Queen Hera hits. You have 10% damage reduction against it, so it's actually quite a sizable amount you are protecting yourself against, so that does help at least justify the lower weighted stats to a certain extent. However, one of the greatest aspects is using her on active skill clause teams, because you have only a 2-turn base cooldown, and the greatest team you can utilize her on is Anubis, because Anubis needs to hit 8 combos with his future buff, maybe it's here now, but 8 combos overall, and with those 8 combos you are able to basically unleash spectacular damage, and if you use an active skill, the damage ramps up significantly. So that 7 combo awakening does obviously play a nice role alongside of it. And also, the fact that you're using an active skill very often means you at least have some damage as a buffer, so you might be able to pick off annoying floors, even if your board only gives you at least 7 combos present, and you have to pray for those Skyfalls. So, it does have merits on Anubis teams, plus the idea that you have that damage mitigation does allow them to survive preempted without necessarily modifying their team, especially in solo mode. So, in addition to being used on, say, Anubis or even Bastet, but Gun was better, or say a Reincarnated Ra for the active skill clauses, you can use this lovely lady on, say, Machine Zeus farming teams. Because when you farm Machine Zeus, you have 10 floors of fun, and floor 9 produces Lockjammers. So the idea is you actually use her as a sub on your team, of course. You inherit an active skill over top, use that active skill at some point in the dungeon beforehand, and then that 2 turns charges up, and by the time you reach floor 9 and those locked orbs, you can simply remove them and be on your merry little way. So it is a usable card. It does have lots of uses. We may find more niche situations to utilize her on, but she's quite powerful as a base for skill inheritance for the most part. And last, and perhaps I'm saving the best for last, is Sima Yi. And Sima Yi follows the same trend as the other 3 in that they remove locked orbs, they generate 2 different colors without changing hearts, they have double TPA and 7 combo awakenings. But his color change is actually very important because you now are able to generate dark and water orbs without changing hearts. So this has tremendous value on many top tier dark teams. You could obviously pair him with Dark Athena, but I really wouldn't. But he makes potentially a much stronger sub on Dark Athena teams, as well as even an inherit, because Dark Athena teams require purple and water orbs for success. So you have an active skill that does that without removing hearts. So he's actually the superior choice when you need to generate those 2 colors without using a board changer, because presently speaking, the only other option we had thus far is Awoken Yamasachi, who did generate water and dark orbs, but he broke hearts at the same time. Furthermore, Sima Yi will at least transfer stats if used as an inherit, so it's just a better choice overall. Now, in addition to that, you are able to use him as a combo with Haku, because Haku is a relatively staple sub on Dark Athena teams, and when you pop Haku's board changer of fire, water, and dark, you now can convert the fire to dark safely without having to run Hanzo or Hanzo Inherit, and you basically have a 2/3 dark board for maximum burst potential, and it's just amazing. So the reason why I didn't put necessarily Sima Yi into the top category is because he's not necessarily the best choice for Dark Athena teams, or even most other dark teams like, say, Odin Dragon or Aizen. Like, it's good, but it's not the best, and triple checkmark tier is usually reserved for the best cards, mostly because Sima Yi only has 6 awakenings and only 748 weighted stats. So it is a lower downgrade, because if you compare to, say, Reincarnated Haku has 1,000 weighted stats, much better awakenings overall. It's just stronger, and that's just the main reason why he's not in the triple checkmark category. However, right now, if we say get Dark Athena soon, he will be better right now to be used because we don't have Reincarnated Haku, and we can always benefit from the dual TPA, 7 combo awakenings, and that time extent is helpful for the most part. So he is a very powerful card overall. So basically in conclusion, the Three Kingdoms 2 Pantheon is quite exciting in addition to Puzzle Dragons. Like, we do have new orb-changing possibilities, and it basically opens up at least either inheritance or sub options for your various teams. Now, being able to unlock locked orbs is meaningful and beneficial, but it's not necessarily game-breaking, but it's just a nice tool to have at your disposal, and you can utilize it when necessary. So, let me know what you think about the new Three Kingdom 2 Pantheon series in the comments below. Hopefully you all have a Mantastic day, and look forward to my Godfest review coming up, and happy puzzling!